They will toss stones at your soul, but child, don't you ever drop your peace to pick one up. You are the master of your inner kingdom. That is no small thing to say, for within each of us lies an invisible sacred territory where thoughts roam like wild horses, emotions rise like tides, and peace can be as fragile as a feather in the wind, or as steady as a stone on the ocean floor. This kingdom is not seen by the eye, but it governs how we see everything. It is not built with bricks or wood, yet it is the most fortified place you will ever live in. The walls of this kingdom are built from every lesson you've learned, every wound you've healed, every boundary you've claimed, and every silent moment of self-respect you chose when it would have been easier to shout. The gate to this kingdom? That, my dear, is your awareness, and only you hold the key. You do not rent space to critics. You do not offer free lodging to judgment. You do not hang your crown on the opinions of the crowd. Because when you forget you're the ruler within, you'll begin acting like the servant of everything around you. Now, there will be those who will try to plant flags on your soil. They will come cloaked in words that sound like advice but feel like manipulation. They'll try to tell you how you should feel, how you should speak, how you should react. Some will come in anger, others in flattery, but both are distractions dressed in costume. They cannot enter your inner court unless you open the gate. You must understand that no one, not a soul, has the power to touch your calm unless you give them a map and an invitation. This kingdom, your kingdom, is sovereign. But oh, how easy it is to forget. We hand out keys to strangers and critics without thinking. We allow a rude comment to ring louder than a decade of dignity. We surrender our mornings to a cold look, our nights to the memory of an old insult, and our peace to the roar of someone else's storm. But to be master is to learn that nothing enters without your permission. Mastery does not mean you feel nothing. It means you choose what stays and what must be escorted out. Imagine a woman walking through a market, vibrant and full of life, but every few feet someone shouts her name, throws an insult, makes a demand. You should smile more. You're too quiet. That dress is too loud. Who do you think you are? If she stopped at every call, turned at every shout, replied to every jab, she would never reach her destination. Now imagine instead that she walks steady, head held high, not out of arrogance, but out of knowing. She hears it, oh yes, but she doesn't absorb it. She knows her worth is not up for debate. She knows her journey cannot be delayed by the detours of people who have lost their way. That, my love, is what it means to be the master of your inner kingdom. To own your emotions does not mean to deny them. It means to guide them. It means to say, anger, I see you, but you will not steer today. Fear, I hear you, but you will not write this letter. It means you don't allow your kingdom to be set on fire every time someone lights a match. Sometimes someone will bring you a burning torch and expect you to carry it. Sometimes they will toss words like arrows, sharp and wild, hoping you bleed from everyone. But mastery means you let them fall. You let the fire burn out before it touches your garments. You sit tall in your soul, and you do not explain your calm to those who thrive on chaos, because some people do not come to visit, they come to conquer. They do not seek understanding, they seek control. And the moment you forget your throne, they will offer you chains disguised as conversations. Being the master of your inner kingdom also means knowing what to plant there. Do you plant bitterness? Do you let anger grow roots and bloom into grudges? Or do you plant patience, water it with reflection? Do you let stillness take root until even in the middle of a storm, you are unshaken? This kingdom is shaped by your habits, not your hopes, by your boundaries, not your busyness. And there will be days when it feels like everything outside is banging at the gates: criticism, rejection, comparison, injustice. But your power lies in knowing that your response is not required. You owe nothing to the noise. And on the days when you forget, when you catch yourself handing over the crown to something small and temporary, just return. Return home to your peace. Return to the throne inside. You are not made to be ruled by chaos. You were built to govern with grace. Silence is power, not surrender, but the world will often mistake it for weakness. You see, we live in an age where noise is mistaken for influence, where volume is confused with truth, and where reaction is praised louder than reflection. People speak simply to be heard, not to understand. They fill the air with words the way frightened children might fill a dark room with laughter, not because they have joy, but because they are afraid of the quiet. But silence, true silence, is not born from fear. It is the child of confidence. It is the sacred pause between impulse and intention. When you choose silence, you are not stepping back, you are stepping inward. You are returning to a center that cannot be shaken by surface storms. The one who remains calm when provoked is not the fool, but the force. The one who does not speak is not empty. They are full of restraint, and restraint is a river that carves valleys deeper than rage ever could. There is a story, an old one, about a woman who worked in a place where her dignity was tested daily. People spoke over her. They mocked her for her quiet nature. They called her passive, weak, said she had no voice. They would bait her in meetings, roll their eyes when she spoke gently, laugh as if her piece was something comical. But she never raised her voice, never snapped back. She would simply meet their fire with a gaze as cool as stone and a silence that swallowed all their noise. What they didn't know, what they could not see, was that she had learned the language of silence from her grandmother, who had learned it from her mother before her, women who had been silenced but never broken, women who taught her that you do not waste your voice on ears that have no intention of listening. That silence is not the absence of a response, but the presence of a decision. And that decision says, I will not lower myself to rise to your bait. They mocked her silence until one day, when the storm came, layoffs, politics, confusion, she was the only one people turned to. Why? Because her silence had always been the mark of someone who listened more than she spoke, who watched more than she judged, and who thought before she moved. In the chaos, her quiet became the compass. Her calm became the leadership they never recognized until the noise had failed them. You see, silence, real silence, is not passive. It listens, it studies, it holds its breath like a hunter in the wild, waiting for the moment when movement matters. It is the difference between fire that spreads and fire that warms. When someone attacks you with words, when they insult you, belittle you, challenge your worth, you have a choice. You can match their volume, you can enter the ring they've built, wrestle with mud they've prepared, or you can stand still, breathe, and say more in your absence of reaction than their 100 shouting words ever will. That right there is power. Because when you don't respond, when you don't clap back, when you don't take the bait, you leave them wrestling with their own echo. And people will remember that. They may not say it, but they feel it. The silence wraps around them like a mirror, and they are forced to face what they threw and see that it never reached you. Every offense is a test, not a truth. But oh, how quickly we forget that when the sting of someone's words slices through the soft underbelly of our spirit, when they roll their eyes, speak behind our back, twist our intentions, or throw shade in the light of day, we so easily wear the wound like a name tag. We confuse someone's opinion with divine proclamation. We let careless words become mirrors. And before long, we are seeing ourselves not as we are, but as we were told to feel. But you must remember, not every wound is worth the bleeding, and not every insult deserves a home inside your heart. An offense is a flash, a flicker. It is not scripture. It is not your identity. It is not a decree passed down from the heavens. It is a test, a temporary moment created to see whether you will consume it or cast it aside like the dust it is. It is an invitation not to react, but to rise. You see, people speak from the level they live on. Their words are shaped by their wounds, their days, their disappointments. If a person has been ignored, they may lash out to be noticed. If someone feels invisible, they may cut others just to feel seen. If their love was always conditional, they will weaponize approval. So when they say you're too quiet, it might be because your peace reminds them of the chaos they haven't conquered. When they say you're too much, it might be because your presence stretches them in places they've never been willing to grow. Their offense is a reflection of where they are, not where you belong. And if you do not pause, you will pick up what was never meant to be carried. You will bend your back to burdens that were never yours. There is a woman I once knew, strong in silence, soft in her spirit, but bold in her boundaries. She worked in a place where the louder you were, the more you were noticed. She was not loud. She was not eager to prove. Her worth wasn't tied to performance. And because of that, she was a mystery to people who only knew how to perform. So they mocked her. They said, she's weak. She's fake. She thinks she's better than us. And for a while, she wore those whispers like bricks in her coat. She questioned herself. She dimmed. She tried to blend in. But one day she remembered, their words were never about her. They were about their discomfort. They were about their fear of someone who could walk in a room and command it without raising her voice. The moment she realized the offense was a test of her identity, not a truth of her character, was the moment she began to rise again. She didn't need to fight. She needed only to remember. Offense is a teacher. It shows you what still stings. It reveals where your worth has not yet taken root. Because if someone calls you something and it hurts, it is not their voice, but your unhealed place that's ringing loudest. The truth is, you only believe what already lives somewhere inside you. If I told you the sky was green, you would laugh. Why? Because you know the sky is blue. You have seen it, felt it, lived beneath it. But if I say you're not good enough and it shakes you, then perhaps there's a part of you still unsure, still waiting for proof of what has always been true. So the offense is not a declaration, it is a question. Do you know who you are? Have you settled into your worth? Or will you let someone else define your reflection? Every jab, every sideways comment, every backhanded compliment, it is not sent to destroy you. It is sent to reveal how deeply you've anchored yourself in truth. Even Jesus was mocked. Even poets are ridiculed. Even saints are misunderstood. Greatness often comes with the burden of being unseen in your fullness. So when the offense arrives, and it will, ask yourself, is this a truth or is this a test? And more often than not, you will find that the person offending you is really offering you a chance to practice stillness, a chance to reinforce the wall between your identity and someone else's projection, a chance to choose response over reaction, to walk away without picking up their pain and calling it your own. Think of a child throwing pebbles at a fortress. That fortress does not tremble. It does not retaliate. It does not shout. It stands unmoved because it knows what it is made of. When someone offends you, you must ask yourself, do I know what I'm made of? Because when you truly do, nothing they say can make you forget. Their words may knock, but they will not enter. Their accusations may ring, but they will not root. And the offense, though loud, will pass like wind against a mountain, leaving no mark and no scar. Train the tongue to serve the spirit. That is not merely instruction, it is sacred discipline. For the tongue, left untamed, is a wild thing. It snaps, it strikes, it scatters truth like broken glass when it is governed by the heat of the moment instead of the wisdom of the soul. Words, once released, do not return quietly. They travel like arrows through the hearts of others, and more dangerously, they echo inside your own. You may forget what you said, but your spirit does not. The words you launch in anger, insecurity, or pride, they do not disappear. They root, they return, and eventually they shape you. That is why the tongue must be taught to wait, to listen, to breathe before it builds or breaks. You see, the mouth should not be the first to speak. The spirit must speak first, and the tongue must follow as a humble servant, not a reckless master. If your words do not pass through the filter of compassion, patience, truth, or grace, then perhaps they were never meant to be spoken in the first place. Too many of us were never taught to honor the power that lives beneath our teeth. We were taught to speak quickly, to defend ourselves fast, to retaliate when challenged, to prove we're not weak, to shout over silence so our pain could feel like presence. But there is no strength in an untrained tongue. There is no glory in the ability to wound. That is not power. That is lack. That is a spirit that has not yet found peace. And so it seeks revenge dressed in clever words. But when you train your tongue, you speak not to be heard, but to heal. You speak not to win, but to witness. You do not throw your words like daggers. You lay them like stones in a foundation of wisdom. You speak so that even when the conversation ends, your words keep working in the silence. That's the mark of a disciplined spirit. There was a man once, a teacher by title, but a healer by the way he walked. He was known not for the volume of his voice, but for the way he spoke when the room was at its tensest. He had the gift of restraint, and restraint, when practiced, becomes revelation. A colleague, frustrated and hot with jealousy, insulted him publicly one day, challenged his intellect, mocked his kindness, questioned his place. The room braced itself for a war of words, but the teacher did not fire back. He looked at the man, eyes clear and still, and said only this: "I won't let this moment change the man I worked so hard to become." Then he fell silent, and the silence, wrapped in dignity, said far more than rage ever could. You see, he had trained his tongue, not to flatter, not to hide, but to honor the man his spirit had matured into. That kind of self-governance does not arrive overnight. It is cultivated. It is chosen 1,000 times in 1,000 moments when you want to speak, but choose instead to be. And what is training if not repetition with reverence? The tongue must be slowed down again and again until it understands that not every emotion deserves a voice, not every thought deserves expression, and not every conflict is worth commentary. The tongue must be reminded that silence is not weakness, it is sacred pause. The spirit must be consulted before the mouth is opened, and sometimes the spirit will say, "Let them misunderstand you. Let them speak first. Let them be loud while you stay rooted." Because words are not currency for every transaction. Sometimes your calm is the loudest sentence in the room. To speak only when your spirit has shaped the message is an act of reverence toward yourself and toward the listener. The old ones used to say, "Speak only if it improves the silence." But today we fill silence with sound because we are uncomfortable with stillness. We are uncomfortable with not responding, not reacting, not proving, but power does not need to prove. Power sits, power waits, power listens, power speaks with intention. The disciplined tongue is not quick to strike, but it is unforgettable when it finally moves. And the more you train it, the more your words will become tools of light, carving space for peace, for clarity, for honor. People may forget what you wore, what you did, even what you gave, but they will remember how your words made them feel, how your tone lifted or crushed, how your speech aligned with your soul or betrayed it. The tongue, when trained well, will speak not for attention, but from awareness, not for applause, but from alignment, not to dominate, but to dignify. It will be a servant, not of ego, not of fear, but of the quiet, steady, unshakable voice within you that has always known who you are. Your peace is your responsibility. That truth will not always sit comfortably, especially when life has bruised you and people have mishandled you. It's easier, far easier to say, "They stole my peace. She ruined my day. He made me lose my temper." But peace is not a toy to be taken. It is not a fragile thread to be snapped by a stranger's carelessness. Peace is a home within, and like any home, it must be built, maintained, and protected. And when you understand that it is your job, your sacred job, to guard that home, you stop leaving the front door open for every critic, every loud voice, every misunderstanding. You realize the locks were always in your hands. You learn that while you may not control the world outside your windows, you absolutely control what enters through your spirit. It takes maturity to own this. It takes a quiet, deep strength to say, "I will not hand over my calm because the world is loud. I will not allow my soul to be shaken every time someone else is unsteady." It is a quiet kind of revolution, this claiming of peace, because people will try to rattle it intentionally and unintentionally, sometimes with sharp tongues, sometimes with soft manipulation, sometimes with silence that speaks louder than cruelty, and sometimes with love that feels more like control. There is no shortage of forces eager to pull you into storms that are not yours to enter. But every time you feel yourself pulled, ask, "Is this mine to carry?" Because if it costs you your peace, it's asking more than it's worth. That doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you isolate or turn cold. It means you love yourself enough not to be available to every drama, every demand, every disaster that knocks on your door. Peace is not the absence of trouble. Peace is the presence of alignment. Peace is knowing your center, even when the world is off balance. And that center must be tended to daily, not when it's convenient, but especially when it's difficult. There was a man, gentle in spirit, but often mistaken for weak. He worked in a high-pressure world where urgency was mistaken for importance and chaos was praised as commitment. One day, a colleague who felt threatened by his calm demeanor exploded in front of him. She questioned his competence, his timing, even his value to the team. The room fell silent, waiting for the response. And it would have been easy, justified even, for him to clap back, to defend himself, to match her heat with fire of his own. But instead, he stood still, not from fear, but from decision. And he said, "I've worked too hard for my peace to lose it in a room like this." Then he walked away, not out of cowardice, but out of clarity. He knew that his energy was sacred. He knew that defending himself to someone who had already made up their mind was a conversation with no exit. And most of all, he knew that peace was not something the world handed you. It was something you had to protect with intention. That day, he kept his peace. And in doing so, he gained something even more valuable, his power. You cannot keep placing your peace in the pockets of other people, hoping they will handle it with care, hoping they'll be gentle enough not to shake it, because people are people. Some will love you, yes, but some will test you. Some will misunderstand you and not care to learn better. Some will project their own pain onto you because they haven't figured out how to hold it alone. And if your peace depends on their behavior, you'll never rest. You'll be a puppet to circumstance, always reacting, always adjusting, always exhausted. But when you decide that your peace is your own to nourish, your own to anchor, then you become unshakable. You begin to choose your responses, not based on their energy, but based on your integrity. You begin to walk away from what doesn't serve your spirit. You begin to let go, not out of pettiness, but out of protection, because you were not born to live in constant defense of your peace. You were born to dwell in it. That peace must become a boundary, not a soft suggestion, but a firm wall around your soul. And when someone says, "You've changed," you will smile and say, "Yes, I've started protecting my peace." When someone says, "You're so distant lately," you will smile and say, "I've stopped renting space in my mind to noise," because you learn that you can love people and still not let them into the quiet room within you. You learn that forgiveness does not mean open access. You learn that peace, once lost, takes time to rebuild, and you cannot keep tearing it down to please others who never helped you build it to begin with. So you tend to it like a sacred flame. You feed it with rest, with prayer, with silence, with boundaries. You check in with yourself before you check in with the world. You listen to the soft voice within that says, "Protect your peace like it's the last good thing you own." Because in a noisy world, in a loud time, the soul that knows how to stay calm becomes a sanctuary, not just for itself, but for everyone who enters its presence. Bless those who try to break you, not because they deserve your kindness, but because you deserve your freedom. You see, when you bless someone who has wounded you, you're not excusing the wound. You are releasing the weight. You are choosing to not be chained to the hand that struck you. There's a power, deep and quiet, in refusing to become bitter when you've had every reason to be. Because bitterness is a parasite. It latches to the hurt and grows in the dark. And before you know it, you are repeating the same patterns of those who harmed you, just dressed in different clothes, a different voice, but the same injury echoed forward. But when you bless those who tried to break you, when you refuse to repay evil for evil, you break the cycle. You plant something softer in soil that has only known pain. And from that moment on, you are no longer reacting from the wound. You are rising from the wisdom. It is not easy. It is not a smooth path. When someone lies on your name, manipulates your kindness, undermines your joy, or leaves when you most needed them to stay, your first instinct will not be to bless. It will be to curse, to gather your pain like a fire and throw it back in their direction. You will feel justified. You will feel strong in that rage. But strength without peace is just noise. And power without grace is just pain recycled. You can win the argument and still lose yourself. You can say all the right things in revenge and still not sleep at night. But when you bless them, not with naive sweetness, but with spiritual maturity, you are not surrendering your strength. You are showing it. You are saying, "You did not shape me. I will not carry your poison any further." There was a woman who lived with a quiet fire inside her. She gave deeply, listened longer than most, showed up for people who only called her when they were falling. One day, someone close to her, a friend she had helped rise many times, spoke cruelly behind her back, betrayed her in a room full of those who had once applauded her. It shattered something in her, not just the friendship, but the belief that love given would always be love returned. For a time, she became cold, guarded, her words sharp, her trust distant. But then, one evening, sitting alone under the weight of it all, she remembered the way her grandmother used to speak blessings aloud for those who had hurt her. "Let them find peace," she would whisper. "Let them be healed so they no longer hurt others." And that night, the woman did something strange. She spoke a blessing over the one who broke her. Not because she forgot, not because it didn't matter, but because she didn't want to carry it anymore. That blessing did not make her weak. It made her whole. You bless them not to erase the damage, but to take back the pen and write your own ending. You bless them because you know that people who try to break others are already living in brokenness themselves. You bless them because their actions are not a reflection of your worth, but a cry from their own war within. You bless them because you know how heavy hate can be when it's worn too long. And you're not willing to trade your future for a grudge. You're not willing to keep your heart in a prison that they built. And blessing doesn't always mean words. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's letting go of the desire to explain yourself. Sometimes it's not defending yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes it's moving forward and succeeding without dragging their name into your story. Sometimes it's the quiet, steady decision to rise, to still rise, without needing applause or revenge. That is blessing. That is sacred rebellion. That is the Spirit saying, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become after it. And maybe they'll never apologize. Maybe they'll keep spinning stories. Maybe they'll never feel the sting of what they did. But that's no longer your business. You are not the keeper of their karma. You are the guardian of your soul. And when you bless them, you are setting yourself free. You are laying down the weight. You are reclaiming the energy that was once trapped in resentment and placing it back in your hands where it always belonged. You are becoming the one who turns pain into power, hurt into healing, and betrayal into a bridge to deeper peace. Bless them, not because they deserve it, but because you do, because your spirit was never made to be small, because your heart, though bruised, still knows how to beat with grace. Because even after all they took, you still have the courage to give yourself back to yourself, whole and unbothered, unshaken and rising.